Do you remember much of the concert?
Um, yes, I do. I started to go in a different direction, but I decided not to. Yeah, it was.
That was Sandy Barbour, and this is On the Bench with Mike Hall. That's me. Sandy Barbour is the Penn State athletic director. I've always been fascinated by the position of athletic director, and I always wanted to have a long chat with one to learn about their job, because it's a pretty cool gig when you think about it. It overlooks things that mean so much to so many fans. Sandy has plenty of AD experience. When she was only 36, she became the Tulane AD. 8 years into that, she took the same job out west at Cal and spent a decade there before heading to State College. Beyond her job, her life has been interesting too. Grew up in a military family, as her dad was a career aviator for the US Navy. And she had game. In college, she played 2 sports at Wake Forest, including hoops for 2 years, and she was the captain on the Demon Deacons field hockey team. You can tell when talking to Sandy that while she takes her responsibilities seriously, she also has a loose personality which makes her able to just shoot the breeze with ease. Before we start, I want to make clear Sandy and I taped this a few weeks back just before the football season began. Now, considering the talented athlete she's been and how not so much I am, I started our chat by asking, how badly would a 1970s Sandy Barbour beat me at hoops?
Wow. That one came from out of left field. A 1970s. So I graduated from high school in 77 and headed to Wake Forest primarily as a basketball player. That was my first love. But I also was a field hockey player, and it ends up I was a much better field hockey player than I was a basketball player. So I got a little bit more playing time on the field hockey pitch, but I love basketball. Grew up in Tobacco Road, and just was and continue to be a basketball junkie. I'm 5'6". I didn't have much of a handle, so maybe I could not beat today's Mike Hall. I don't know.
Wow, that is the most politically correct answer. The actual answer is you destroy me, Sandy. We all know it.
I don't know. Let's get through this COVID stuff and let's actually make it happen.
Yeah. Listen, this says charity event written all over it. You pick the day and the place, and I'm there, and I will get my butt whipped happily.
There we go. And and we can pick our favorite BTN announcers to be color and play-by-play. So.
But you're downplaying your field hockey skills too. You were pretty good. Weren't you a captain?
I was. I ended up. I played. I played on the front line in high school, and then had a few injuries as I ended my high school career and headed into college, and ended up as a goalkeeper. And actually ended up that's probably where I should be. I ended up to be okay.
Yeah. Are there any sports that it's tougher to play field hockey and hoops nowadays? But are there any sports you still find yourself playing on a consistent basis?
Oh, probably not on a consistent basis. I love to get out on the golf course, but that's only because of the green grass and the beverage cart. But yeah. and the folks that you're doing it with. But I try to stay active. Try to stay fit. It's more challenging at times than others, but at least try to do something every day. And I've really probably in the last 15 to 20 years gotten into Pilates. And feel like it's really helped me from a flexibility standpoint. So try not to get glued to my chair or my desk. And frankly, the way I love to do the job that we do is to get out and walk around and go to practices and see student athletes and coaches in the hallways and donors and faculty members and others. And obviously that's something that in this time is also absent in our daily lives. So I think it makes it just a little bit more challenging.
I could see that being really fun on your end and maybe a little intimidating on the other end of things. Oh boy, here's Sandy, the AD's here. Everybody on your P's and Q's.
Yeah, you're right about that. But the key to that is is that you try to do it regularly, and therefore it's not like, oh crap, what's wrong? What's happened? The AD has walked into the practice gym or onto the field or onto the whatever. And, frankly, I probably don't achieve that as much as I would hope to. But maybe a little bit of my old compliance background is that, that's really when it's, oh, here comes the compliance cop. Something's got to be wrong. And so certainly as I've become an athletic director, I've encouraged all of our compliance operation at the 3 different places that I've been the AD to, get out to practice or just stop by and say hi to the coaches. So it's not every time you walk in the door, something's wrong. But yeah, I probably try to downplay it, but when the AD walks in the room unexpectedly, under no matter what the circumstances are, it's like, whoops, attention, kind of thing.
Yeah, there's probably no way around that. Sure. So you're at this great institution in Penn State. Give me the most you've ever gotten chills from a Penn State sporting event in your handful of years you've been there now.
Wow. I don't know that we have enough time on this podcast to do that, but it's funny. I came to Penn State in the fall, late summer of 2014, and our first football game of that season was in Dublin. We went to Ireland and we played UCF, so my first Penn State football game was the second week of the season, and I believe we opened at home against Akron, and it was pretty cool. 107,000 seat stadium. I don't think we probably had 107 that day, but it was pretty awesome. And but I was like, okay, yeah, wow, this is cool. Well, obviously the whiteout that year just blew me away. Absolutely blew me away. And I think, the team coming out of the tunnel, I was on the field at the time, and the team coming out of the tunnel to that crowd and that evening, and it was just unbelievable. But there have been so many kind of, make the hair on your arm stand up or the back of your neck moments. I've been fortunate to be at places that have won national championships in a variety of different sports. But we won the volleyball national championship in December of 2014. I'll never forget that. That was pretty special. Of course, Russ doesn't ever let me forget that, women's volleyball was my first at Penn State. We've won a bunch of NCAA championships in wrestling, and Bo Nichols' pin in I guess it would be 19. It was either 18 or 19. I get to cinch the deal, seal the deal for the Nittany Lions over Ohio State. I cried. Yeah. So that's a different version of your chills, because that was it. That hung in the balance. It was us and Ohio State, and pretty much whoever won that match was going to win the national championship. And Bo pinned the guy, and it was over. It was done. It didn't matter what happened in the heavyweight match, which was Ohio State versus Michigan. Plug for the Big Ten Conference in wrestling, right? So there was that, and then I got to be honest. There have been moments, and they've not really been moments in time, but they've been achievements. The last 2 years we've set an all-time record for, or a historic record for graduation rates for Penn State, and I'm really proud of those moments, because it's not like Penn State has been a place that had some challenges in that area, and maybe so we've gotten it on the right track, and we've done 82 or 85%. Penn State's been a place that's historically always been really good academically, and we've set new records in the 90s. Yeah. So that's special, because I know the effort that goes behind that. Not just, primarily the student athletes, but all the support staff and the coaches and the administration and the faculty that go behind that. So those moments are special to me too.
You brought up the whiteout game for football. Not long ago, I was talking to the Fox lead announcer, Joel Klatt, and he was telling me it's not even close. When when the networks fight for which games they want among the Big Ten, the top two every year are Ohio State, Michigan, and whoever Penn State has in the whiteout game. Describe what that atmosphere is like.
Well, it starts with, and I had a Penn State letterman tell me this story. He said, Sandy, why do you know why, or do you understand why the bowl of Beaver Stadium is gray? And I said, no, why? And he said, because it's the people that bring the color. It's the people that bring the personality. It's the people that bring the passion. And that is so true at Penn State. And on that particular evening, once a year, although Penn Staters, tend to want to bring that magic every day and every night and try to repeat it. But on that particular night, it's our unity night. And everybody wears that particular color. Everybody wears white. It pops at night. It pops under the lights. Everybody's got the pom-poms. But it's our fans. It's their passion. It's their connection with this university and with those student athletes and this team and this program that just comes out everywhere. It explodes. It explodes, frankly, from the visiting team, and as evidenced by, I think it was Michigan's, first series this last year, and it's a celebration of our unity. It's as a community and as a university and as a program, and every way you can imagine that it is created and shown. It comes out that night, and it's loud and it's crazy, and it's all behind our football team.
Yeah. Has there ever been discussion? I mean, it is such a cool event for the fans, for the players, for TV. Has there ever been discussion about having more per year?
There are a number of things, I think, at Penn State that are really phenomenal events. The whiteout comes to mind. Our BJC event for wrestling that we do once a year. We take it out of Rec Hall and we bring it to BJC, and we have over 18,000 fans in the BJC for wrestling. We've talked about it. We've talked about doing more of both of those, but I think you do lose some of the specialness and the effort that goes into that one game, that one event every year. But to your point, there's no doubt about it, particularly on the football side with the whiteout, that a lot of our fans do try to recreate that, whether it's a noon kick or it's a night kick, or frankly, when we go on the road and our little section of 1,000 or whatever we get on the road, they all wear their white, and sometimes they're louder than whatever the rest of the population is in the home team stadium.
Yeah. What's it like picking what the whiteout game will be everywhere? Who's involved? When do you have to decide it by? What's that whole process like?
Well, we typically do it in the spring, and we certainly do it by kind of opponent and what the game might mean to the conference and the national race, and the national championship race, and it's pretty much an athletic department decision. But we pick it. We usually keep it a secret for a while because we also want to we want to gauge what the kick time might be, because it's certainly more effective when it's a night game, and so all of that kind of goes in the stew to figure it out. But it's always greatly anticipated, as is most of our schedule. But it's always greatly anticipated what it's going to be, and some years there's a lot of there's this thing you might not be aware, but there's this thing called social media that likes to debate.
Nope.
Yep. Nope. Don't know anything about
Never
it.
heard of it.
Yeah, in this last year, it was somehow somebody put out there that I don't remember which of our great network partners it was, but that somebody was going to get the game, and it was going to be a noon game. And, Sandy, you have to do something about this. So I knew that wasn't going to happen, but I let him stew a little bit. So,
But let me ask you what I think would be one of your favorite football years to talk about, 2016. That was a wild year. You play Michigan and get blown out, so the record falls 2-2. It looks like it's going to be a miss of a season. I think you even had to give the dreaded 80 vote of confidence. And then the Nittany Lions win out and become Big Ten champions. What do you remember about that year?
I remember a lot about that year. And I hope as time goes by that those memories don't fade at all. And I don't think that they will. And I'll tell you the chronologically, those first memories, Mike, are exactly what you just said. We did kind of get our head handed to us at Michigan, to fall to 2-2. And I had a speaking engagement in Altoona. And I'll be honest, I did not anticipate that there would be media there. It was not really a public event, or kind of a quasi-public event, but that's fine. There was a member of our media there who grabbed me afterwards and asked me some pretty pointed questions. Now the easy part about that is how I feel about James Franklin has not changed over the course of 6.5 years now, and so my answer was easy. James is our guy. He's doing a great job. Yeah, it doesn't, Penn State should not get blown out by anybody. We might not win all the games, but we should be able to stand toe to toe with anybody, and certainly anybody in our conference. But he's our coach today. He's going to be our coach. He's going to be our coach next year, etc. Then we play Minnesota at home. And we are down, I don't remember exactly the score, but we're down in the fourth quarter. And I'm thinking, oh my. And I'll be honest, our board of trustees was going to be in town the next week. And I'm thinking, all right, obviously I'm still supportive of James. Just, what form does this take? How do I be proactive? How do I support James and the team in the very, very best way that I can? And Saquon comes and saves the day, and we beat Minnesota. Right? Yeah, that worked out all right. Yeah, yeah, and we win them. We beat Minnesota. We beat the Golden Gophers in overtime, and then we just go on this unbelievable run that I would have loved to cap off with a win in the Rose Bowl against the Trojans, but it didn't. The ending was not the Cinderella ending we were looking for. But just really, really proud of those guys, and I was proud of those guys that day. The way that they conducted themselves, and in so many ways, this national television audience got to see who we were. Who we were as student athletes, who our coaching staff is, who James Franklin is, how he mentors those young men. And of course, I would have loved to have won that game and had the victory part of that capped off. But to have Penn State in 2016, back in the Rose Bowl, Big Ten champs, because the game I've left out in that streak was the Big Ten championship game in Indianapolis against a really good Wisconsin squad. Right. And that was, it's going to sound like I cry a lot because I really don't, but that one brought me to tears too. And then the last thing I'll say about that team is we had a lot of talent, obviously, Saquon and our quarterback and a lot of talent on the defensive side of the ball. But that team was successful. That team won because of the love in that locker room.
Hmm. Yeah.
And at a time when there was still a lot of pain at Penn State, those young men taught the adults, taught us what it's like to love and forgive and have each other's backs. And that's why that team was successful.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And to consider where that whole campus was just a few years earlier, to have, like you mentioned, Trace McSorley, Saquon, James, that whole crew be so effective and win a Big Ten title not that long after everyone was so down is pretty incredible. You know, I know how much you like James. You've told me in the past you consider him the best college football coach in the country. But you know, he's different now than he was when you took the job. He wasn't a Big Ten champion at the time. So he was hired not long before you at Penn State, I believe.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the AD, you can't get more important in terms of jobs in the athletic department. A Penn State football coach can't be much more important. Like, how did you balance taking this job knowing that there's a head coach that you probably didn't have a great or even in any form a relationship with at that point?
We'd never met.
Right.
we had never met. And I think the real story there is clearly James's feelings for Penn State, because James took the job in January of 2014 without knowing who his athletic director was going to be, and without knowing who his president was going to be. So that tells you, in my book, that tells you everything you need to know about James's feelings about wanting to be at Penn State and how special a job he felt it was. And then his trust in Penn State, in who they would hire as the next president, and then ultimately who that next president would hire as the athletic director. But I also, being an observer and clearly a fan of college football, I'd watched what James had done at Vanderbilt. And it was absolutely amazing. I was a James Franklin fan from afar in terms of what he had done. I had talked to David Williams about James just in passing, just because I thought what the job that he had done was so incredible. And I remember in the interview process telling Dr. Barron, the new president at the time, I said, look, we're going to be okay in football. I mean, it's going to take some time, but James is going to win, and he's going to win big. I really believe that. So I went into our relationship certainly with that belief and that understanding of his talents. And he and I, Dr. Barron and I flew in. Dr. Barron had been in North Carolina, and I was visiting my family in Maryland. And he and I flew into State College before my press conference and went to his house. And James was there, and we sat for about an hour and just talked about things. And everything wasn't okay. Well, that's good. I know everything I need to know about you then. But we got off to a good start. And then that trip to Dublin that I talked about, I mean, obviously our team was busy preparing, but frankly, 5 hours on a plane from Harrisburg to Dublin, I had an opportunity that I wouldn't have otherwise had, to walk around, say hello to everybody, get to meet their families, and have a little bit of FaceTime that would have taken me 3 weeks had everybody not been a captive audience on one plane. So it's things happen for a reason, and I remember during the process of pursuing the job, going and looking at our football schedule and going, Dublin? I don't have time for that. We're going to Dublin? No, it couldn't have worked better. Right.
Yeah, it gave you that opportunity.
Yeah, and Sam Ficken beat UCF on a last-minute field goal. So.
Do you ever think about like what if you didn't get along with him? Like, what if it was, because I'm sure, listen, you've been an AD at multiple places for a long time. You're not going to give me names or anything, but you've had coaches that you didn't like. It's impossible that there was not one coach that you're like, I am not a big fan of this person. That would have been really bizarre for you if that were the case when you walked into this job.
It would have been tough for all of us.
Right.
But fortunately, it wasn't. It's not even close. It's not even close to the case. As a matter of fact, James and I today were on a Zoom call and telling stories about. I've got a bunch of friends that we were having drinks in in a hotel in Arizona around the Fiesta summit a couple of Mays ago, and James kind of photobombed a photo that we were doing. And those four friends, all women, talk about him all the time. They say, "Oh, remember when he photobombed our," and they know we have a great relationship, and they love that.
Yeah.
And so they love him for his part in that.
It's such an interesting job that you have as AD. Give me like who's the gold standard? Who do you go, well, this is what we should all aspire to be as ADs. This person did the job the way it should be.
Yeah, well, it's well known that my mentor is Kevin White, who's the athletic director at Duke. He was my boss at Tulane, and then I succeeded him as athletic director when he left Tulane to go to Arizona State, and then I went to work for him again at Notre Dame. So I certainly think that Kevin is the gold standard just in terms of how he manages and cares and leads people. He's that great mixture of that, as well as his political and community acumen, his understanding of the academy and how it all works. So I think Kevin is the gold standard, but man, have I been fortunate to be colleagues and friends with men and women that just either have a particular expertise that I'm like, okay, now I understand how I should be approaching that or managing that, or who are just, you really look at their programs that they've run for a long time, like a Joe Castiglione at Oklahoma. I mean, in our own conference, I'm going to get in trouble here because obviously, but Gene Smith, Gene's a great friend, and although certainly every time the Nittany Lions line up against the Buckeyes, we want to knock the what out of them. But I admire what he's done with that program for a long time. At a very, very high level. So even though this is a highly, highly competitive sector or industry, I think our coaches maybe, although I know lots of them are good friends as well, I think our coaches may be a little bit more competitive outside the lines than we are. As ADs, when you're not in the competitive arena, we're really trying to help each other. And look out for each other and know when tough times come along, and we're all going through tough times now. But sometimes it's a particular situation on our own campus, and you always get a call or a text or something that says, "Hey, hang in there, I got your back," or any way I can help, let me know. And that's one of the things I've really loved about my almost 40-year career at this point.
Well, it's such a, again, I think it's such a cool job, but an AD it has that feel of like George Costanza wanting to be a baseball general manager. Like you just sort of feel like, oh yeah, that'd be a fun job to do. But like there's so many, I think, layered little things, not only how to become an AD, but like, for example, you were an AD at Tulane, at Cal, at Penn State. Those are all different places. It's not like you were a born and bred fan of Cal Bear sports or Tulane or Penn State. Like it wasn't in your blood. How long until you're not faking it anymore? You know what I mean? Like your date. Like I remember when Brett Bielema left Wisconsin and went to Arkansas, and at his press conference, he's doing the suey and like whatever the Arkansas pig call thing is, and you're like, he must have been memorizing that in the plane. There's no way that's comfortable to him, but at some point it is because you become a part of that culture. How long did it take you in your AD stops before you felt truly like you were genuinely a part of your new culture?
Yeah, Mike, that's a great question, because I mean it's things as simple as kind of the cadence of the "we are," right, and it's the 3 we are Penn State, we are Penn State, and then it's thank you, you're welcome. You got to learn that stuff, and if you screw it up in your press conference, it takes you years to recoup from that, right? So, but it starts in the recruitment process, because you've got to be, you're the successful candidate because you're a values fit, or at least they believe you're a values fit. So it starts there. I will also tell you this time. So this is my sixth stop in my career. I started in the Big Ten in 1982 at Northwestern. So I've come full circle, come home. Every time it's been really all brand new. Coming to Penn State, there were coaches, assistant coaches, head coaches, and administrators and staff members who I'd worked with at another stop. So there was some familiarity there that I frankly never had, other than going to Notre Dame and working for Kevin again. There was some familiarity there. It's you first get a comfort level with the student athletes and kind of who they are, what kind of student athlete the university attracts. Certainly you're going to get to know your coaches and your administrators, and you really get a pulse of that and figure out what you thought is what I thought this was, taking this job, what it truly is. And then you start to add the other layers of faculty and staff and administrators, and your external piece. And I will tell you, more than any other place I've ever been, Penn State is exactly what I thought it was, what it had been represented to be by Eric Barron and the search committee, what I knew it to be growing up in Maryland, just 3 hours away, and knowing Penn State's historical field hockey and lacrosse coaches, because those were my high school sports, and what I understood it to be. It's that it is all of that. It's a focus and an appreciation and a value on education and character development. And oh, by the way, we want to compete for conference and national championships along the way. And that, oh, by the way, is not secondary nor unimportant. And so it was all that. So it became relatively easy to understand from that standpoint. Now, it takes time to meet people and have them trust you. Penn State, for both James and I, is not a place that's been used to a lot of change, and hasn't been used to a lot of non-Penn Staters. And I knew, I knew that there was going to be a trust level, and a need for time for me to earn. I had to earn that. And that was on me, and I totally understood that and embraced that challenge.
You brought up a phrase there that reminded me of something I wanted to ask you. Search committee. When there are big jobs, sometimes ADs go, "I'm the AD. I'm going to find the next coach," and sometimes they say, "Search firms know what they're doing. I'm going to use their benefits." I have heard pros and cons both ways. Where do you stand on them?
Yeah, ultimately the hire is absolutely on me. If I think I can blame or rely upon a search committee in some significant way to pick the right coach for Penn State, that's a huge mistake in my mind. I do believe in the value of I call them search consultants, and because I do think that there are things in terms of vetting and background checks and having underground conversations that I can't do, or that my own internal folks can't do. I think there's great value to that, but ultimately, if who I hire as a search consultant determines who we hire, that's my fault. That's on me. I need to tell them what I'm looking for, And then I or we, depending on who else is involved at the institution in it, need to validate that that the search firm or the search consultant has brought us some number of candidates that actually possess those things we asked for.
Yeah, that makes sense. So they more than anything maybe provide background and conversations where you don't have to be on the record saying, I have not talked to person X, Y, or Z, that allow you the freedom to make a choice without having edit conversations, basically.
In today's environment, that's part of it. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Let me ask you about a couple institutions within your institution. Russ Rose, we brought him up earlier. What do people not know about him?
that Russ has one of the biggest hearts I have ever encountered in college coaching. He gives off this really rough and gruff exterior, and sometimes if you've not really spent time with him or not had interaction with him, you might think everything is sarcastic and everything is rough and tumble, but he's had the success that he's had because he demonstrates to both recruits and more importantly, to his student athletes and his former student athletes, his alums, how much he cares about them, how much he's there for them, to what extent he will go to help them, whether it's play professionally or find volleyball opportunities after graduation, or whether it's professionally. I mean, Penn State has the largest alumni network in the world, of many phenomenal points of difference. That's the number one at Penn State. And Russ, because of his time in the saddle at Penn State, has obviously a huge knowledge of who's where doing what. And I think one of the things that I've been so impressed by in my now going into my 7th year at Penn State is there has never been a time in 7 years, and I don't know what that number is, it's somewhere probably between 100 and 200, that I've picked up a phone and called an alum and said, hey, I'd like to connect you with a student who either wants career advice or is looking for a job or wants to interview at your firm or your whatever, that anybody's even come close to kind of giving me the stiff arm. It's almost always, yep, just give me their number, happy to help. And that's pretty amazing. And Russ, again, because of his 40 plus years at Penn State, works that better than anybody I know.
Yeah. All right. The second institution, in a very different tone, is the Nittany Lion mascot. Now, Sandy, this thing is from 1742, I believe. This is
Mike, it's not a thing. It is a lion.
Okay.
It is the Nittany Lion. Please approach the Nittany Lion with the proper reverence.
Now, I clearly do not want to be disrespectful, but are you
Then
sure?
don't be.
Are you sure it's not just a rug? I mean, that thing is. I think it's seen better days. Is all I'm getting at, and I feel like I wonder if I feel like that thing has lived a good life, Sandy. That's all I'm getting at.
I don't accept your premise. Mike, the first of all, let me repeat myself. The Nittany Lion is not a thing.
Okay. The
Nittany Lion is a lion. The Nittany Lion, and I'll tell you what, by Penn State standards, I've only been at Penn State a very short period of time, those 6 years. In my 6 years, we had the best Nittany Lion mascot that we've had in my time this last year. And I mean, it's all in that character and in his soul and the way he moves and the way he wears the rug.
The rug.
It's not a rug.
Okay.
It's the lion costume.
Well, I'll say this. Of all the colleges that have a mascot of a Nittany Lion, I think that's the best one.
Thank you, Mike, because there is only one Nittany Lion. Others have lions, but there is only one Nittany Lion.
That's right. That's right.
And that's how it should be. That's how it should be.
I think it probably will stay that way. Yeah. I don't think there'll be that many more. Before you go, Sandy, we're going to do Before You Go, 4 questions that are unrelated to anything at all. Number 1, first concert you ever went to?
Rolling Stones, Brussels, Belgium.
Wait, not just the Stones, but in Belgium?
I lived there. I was living there, yeah.
When?
Yep. Like 73, 74, something like that. Yeah. My dad was career Navy, and we were stationed in Brussels.
Oh my God. What was that? Do you remember much of the concert?
Yes, I do. I started to go in a different direction, but I decided not to. Yeah. It was.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
It was. I was like 13. It was tremendous. Yeah.
Oh, that's the best answer ever. By the way, you're right. Your dad was a pilot in the Navy, right?
Naval Navy. Yeah.
How many places have you called home in your life?
Oh, I don't even know what that number is. I went to 4 different 5th grades. That's why I can't spell.
All right. Question number 2. The best flavor at the creamery is?
Death by chocolate.
Why?
I'm a chocolate freak. It's chocolate ice cream. It's brownie bits. It's chocolate chips. It's phenomenal. And I'll be honest, I've had it, and I'm sure the creamery, our School of Agriculture that runs the creamery is not going to like this. I've actually had to make a rule for myself that I only go to the creamery when I have out-of-town guests. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to stay away, and that would not be a good thing. So,
understandable.
Death by chocolate, no second place.
Question number 3. Your all-time favorite comedian?
Ooh, wow. Thinking of a few.
Who's popping?
Probably Seinfeld.
Okay. As a stand-up or because of his TV show?
No, as a stand-up.
Yeah.
Definitely as a stand-up, yeah.
I've been reading this book about the stand-ups in the 70s that created the stand-up boom in the 80s and the importance that he had in that time. I mean, it's cool you liked him as a stand-up because the TV show is obviously one of the greatest of all times, but what he did for a decade plus before that show is really remarkable.
Yeah, ironically, I have not watched much of the show.
Really?
Yeah.
No, then my George Costanza reference from earlier probably went
No,
over.
I got it. But yeah.
Final one.
But I'm an Orioles fan, and he's a Yankees guy, so not going to work.
Right.
Yep.
Final one. You have lived on Earth for a bit now. What do you know? What do you know for sure to be true?
Nothing.
Nothing is true.
Yeah, very very little for sure, because a lot of it depends on your perspective. But I do know for sure that love is better than hate.
I like that answer. Sandy Barbour, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Mike, it's been fun. Appreciate it.
So, to recap, they have considered 2 whiteout games, but they won't go there just yet. When wrestler Bo Nickel won a national title, it brought her to tears. And do not imply their mascot has similar qualities to a rug. My thanks to Sandy Barbour for joining me. Heads up, our pal Alex Rue recently had Mike DeCourcy on his Take 10 podcast to preview the Big Ten men's basketball season. Be sure to check that out. But that'll do it for this episode. From the Big Ten Network in Chicago, I'm Mike Hall. We'll see you next week.